Beware of Walmart gift cards and prepare for a hard landing. That's what a lot of people are saying. We're going to talk about what all that means and get into it for you here today. Hey, Bulls and Bears, you're watching Bull Boom Bear Bust. My name is JJ, and as usual, we're back here with another dose of economic reality. Let's go ahead and get started right here. And this is out of, well, a lot of different publications. The Sun here, credit card, or not even a credit card, a gift card, Walmart gift card. We need our money back, slams Walmart shopper after losing $800 even after showing the receipt that she didn't get the cash. And this is no surprise to me at all. Of course, scams like this have been happening for as long as there's been gift cards, but there's a huge uptick this year. In fact, there's even articles out here like this out of the USA Today. Gift card scams 2023. What to know about card draining and other schemes to be aware of. Again, right, no surprise. As more people get pushed into the poverty line, more people get pushed into living paycheck to paycheck because of this outrageous cost of living. And now we need to cut rates because the cost of living is not already high enough. We're talking about rate cuts, but we'll get more into that here later in this video. Of course, things like this are going to increase the scams, everything else. And it's not just Walmart, but that's just the recent news article was based out of Walmart. But I've seen stories like this happening, but it's a lot worse this year. In fact, if you go through the article, it tells you how much worse it is. It's a lot worse. And it's not going to stop. It's going to continue to get worse. With rate cuts on the horizon, cost of living, is it going to go down? No, it's probably going to go higher. We might see some of these bubbles continue to deflate. Really can't keep a lot of these bubbles inflated. I think real estate is still going to see a correction. Depends on how severe the rate cuts are, though. If they do drastic rate cuts or emergency rate cuts, like a lot of us think is going to happen, then who knows what could happen. You could see them reinflate this housing bubble. And that's my point here on this channel. Not so much as to try to make predictions, but because how can you predict something that's completely manipulated when they can turn around and just cut rates? How can you forecast that? How can you forecast what somebody up at the Fed is thinking in their head and try to guess, what they're going to be doing, down the road? It's impossible, right? So you just have to try to play both sides. I always said, I don't know exactly which way this is going to go. We could still see massive inflation if they do record QE, more helicopter money. Rock bottom rates could return. They could put a moratorium again on the foreclosures, on just a lot of things, the rents, and they could keep prices elevated. I think the powers that be, they would rather have that. People at the Fed and etc. The powers that be would rather have inflation versus deflation, even though people are already stressed and close to being maxed out financially. Not just close. Many people are past the point of being maxed out because we see defaults are increasing. Look at the car loan defaults, all-time high, worse than a financial crisis. Other types of defaults already ticking up pretty severely. Credit cards, even mortgages, foreclosures starting to increase. So again, no surprise to anyone here. We knew this was coming. We just didn't know how severe it would be, how fast it would happen. I've always called this a slow motion collapse. And people hear that and they say, what are you talking about? The stock market hit an all-time high. Yes, there's a difference between the Wall Street economy and Main Street economy, right? And I know you've heard that if you've been on this channel, but I understand there might be some new people, and sometimes I still see in comments, what is he talking about, a collapse? Yeah, the consumer is collapsing. The bottom 50%, especially the top 50%, many of them not doing so bad, but the top 10% doing better than ever. The huge wealth transfer, right? But let's get into some other news here. Wanted to touch on this. But one thing about the Walmart credit card scam, I keep saying credit card. One thing about the gift card scam is that it's suspected that it's someone within Walmart catching these card numbers and using the funds once they get loaded onto the card by the customer. And in this article, it points out how this particular Walmart got defensive when they raised the idea that it may have been someone within Walmart. So the fact that they got defensive, that kind of further underpins the fact that it might have been someone from inside the store, right? So I'm not saying don't buy gift cards. Sometimes that's the only solution when there's somebody that's just really difficult to know what they want. You get them a gift card, right? A lot of kids, right? Young people, a lot of them don't know what they want, or they'll tell you something and then change their mind. Oh, I like this. I don't like this. My girl, she's 10 years old now. One year she loved Barbie dolls. Um, Less than a year later, she hated them. Get rid of all of them. I don't like Barbie dolls anymore. After buying Barbie dolls, right? Uh, so that's just the reason I think why people buy gift cards. They don't know exactly what these kids want. So in some cases, it's the only solution. But be careful out there is all I'm saying here. All right, let's get into some other news here. A couple other topics I wanted to cover here. And just what we talked about yesterday with the rate cuts. And again, why do we need rate cuts if the consumer is resilient, the economy's strong, but yet we need to cut rates? Why are we talking about that? Well, that's because the Fed brought it up. Business Insider. Rate cut signals could prompt a fresh bout of inflation. Of course, more easy money, lower rates, the more money people can borrow. And here's the thing, this is all about the banks. If the banks are allowed to keep loaning out money, even though the banks are technically insolvent, then that's going to be an inflationary environment, right? Now, there's forces going both ways, inflation, deflation, right? Inflationary forces, of course, cutting of rates, banks loaning out money they don't have. Deflationary forces are the consumer loaded up on debt like we've never seen before. Most of you know, way worse than the financial crisis. But the ways that they're continuing to kick the can down the road, I mean, it's amazing. Even me, and I've been researching this stuff for years and fully expected this, and still, my head is spinning. Like the fact that they could just go out there and say one thing, and then say the complete opposite thing the very next week, right? We're hearing the consumer's strong, everything's fine, we need to fight inflation, but now we're hearing we need rate cuts, right? Completely opposite ends of the spectrum on what needs to be done here. But that should be really no surprise, I guess, right, to all of us here. Now let's reflect a little bit here on 2023. There's still people out there saying nothing's happening, there's no economic collapse, there's no problems, everything's actually fine. Believing, the lines coming out of these uh, business networks, news channels. American Banker, dramatic collapses made 2023 the biggest year ever for bank failures. I said this after those March string of bank failures that we already had witnessed something that was worse than 2008, and here it is. Now we look back at the year, and we see these bank failures, the losses, worse than the financial crisis. Now, did it end up looking like a crisis? No, because all the depositors were basically bailed out essentially and rescued, even though the FDIC doesn't have enough money to cover even 10% of all the deposits in these banks. They still went ahead and made a deal with the central bank, with the Treasury, to go ahead and rescue all these people. If they would not have rescued all these people, you would have witnessed panic on an unprecedented scale because people would have witnessed that and they would have went and pulled their money out of the banks, and you would have seen a tsunami of bank failures. Even the mega banks, I think, would have went down if they would have just let natural market forces take place. So of course they didn't, and we don't expect them to do that going down the road. That's why we knew that at some point they were going to cut rates, right? So to me, it was a no-brainer. But there's still a lot of big economists out there saying no, the Fed, they're dedicated to fighting inflation because Jay Powell said this, Jay Powell said that. Folks, are you listening to what they say, and are you believing what they say? Just watch what they do. You don't have to listen to what they say. I mean, you want to listen, but just don't believe what they say because, again, we've never been tipped off by any of these talking heads about a possible economic downturn in the past. In fact, if you mentioned that there was going to be a financial crisis in 2006 or 2007, most of the time you would have been laughed at if you were on any news network, right? And you were not warned by anyone in these upper um, levels, of the financial world. So, question is, do you think they actually knew and just didn't tell you? Yeah, I think so. Anyways, dramatic bank failures. We're going to see more of this. We're going to see more bank failures, but it won't actually be a failure. It'll just be, oh, now we got this bank to buy out this bank, even though the bank that bought out the smaller bank is also insolvent, but they're too big to fail. So we have the too big to fail banks gobbling up the smaller banks or the regional banks that are failing. So therefore, you have this consolidation, and really not allowing any natural market forces. I don't know how else to put it. And therefore, we may not see any true price discovery. I know a lot of people are waiting for buying opportunities. And I've always said have cash available because something could break and something could happen that goes completely against, what the big bankers want to happen. The folks that want to continually pave new road to kick the can down. Something could jump up where it's so big and so massive that it's even out of their control, right? So there's so much leverage right now. The derivatives, we're talking hundreds of trillions of dollars. If you look at all the banks combined, just the leverage out there is it's nothing like we've ever seen, and it's only the regulators looking the other way that enable this to continue, right? So if the laws change, if the regulators, flip the script a little bit on what the banks are doing, then you could see some big tsunami collapse like we've never seen before. But again, see, that's up to people and the regulators or people. What are they going to do? Or are they just going to let this insanity continue, right? So again, trying to predict this is trying to be a mind reader. It's very difficult. Even though I have a crystal ball back here, it's works pretty good. But I'm not a mind reader, and I don't think anyone here is. If you are, please let me know down in the comments exactly what's going to happen. And I'll be reading your comments after this video in case someone does want to. If you want to take me up on that offer, right? If you're a mind reader, please let me know. All right, let's move on here. Now, we've always said here there's certain indicators that will reveal the true strength of the economy. How much money they can print? No. How low they can drop interest rates? No. How long can they keep pumping money into the banks with emergency bailouts? No. Rents. That's something because you and I and all the consumers out here, we can't just create this money out of thin air. And if someone's paying for a mortgage or rents, they'll have to find that money somewhere, and it's usually money that they already have. Very few people are paying their mortgage or rents with a credit card or borrowing money. You could, but it's a very small segment of the population. Most of the time, it is the money that people have readily available. But take a look at this. Out of Redfin, the tide turns for renters. Rents post the biggest decline in 3 years. Why is this important? Again, because this is an indicator of how much money people actually have left over. They typically don't borrow money or take out loans to pay rent. So when rents drop, that tells you that we're seeing some financial hardship out there. And people say, well, no, rents can't drop. People have to live somewhere. Well, yeah, they have to live somewhere, and they're going to be moving back home with their mom and dad. They're going to be getting a bunch of roommates. You're going to see more homes with 4, 5, 6, 7 cars parked out front because there's so many people packed into a place now because people can't afford rents. And that's when you start seeing rents drop. When the demand gets lower, people are priced out. They're going to start moving in, again with relatives and roommates, and that's going to put downward pressure on rents. Now, could they do something crazy? Absolutely, they could do another eviction moratorium. Who knows? But so far, U.S. medium asking rent, biggest decline in 3 years. Let's go ahead and bring up a chart here. Again, this is out of Redfin, and we see the median asking rent at the top here, the year over year change at the bottom. And again, we have to go all the way back to looks like late 2019, early 2020 to see this big of a drop in rents. All right, and we just talked about vacancies, people just letting their lease expire or breaking their lease and going and moving back home with mom and dad. And we see right here, if you look, we've got the vacancy rate ticking up to where it was again back in 2020, so close to 3 years ago. And we expect this to fully continue to increase. And if you look back at the financial crisis here, 2008, 2009, the vacancy rate ticked up to over 11% back then. That was the rental vacancy rate, right? So when financial hard times hit, people can't pay their rent, and you'll see rents drop and you'll see the vacancy rate increase. And we think this is just the beginning of the uptrend there in the vacancy rate. That was at the end of the third quarter. We're going to get the fourth quarter numbers here probably at the end of January, and we'll see how it turns out. But I fully expect this increase in the vacancy rate to eclipse 2020 and likely go all the way back to 2017, 2018. Remember, back then, we started seeing some real weakness in the economy. And then what happened? The Fed They hiked rates very briefly, and then they cut rates, right? Because they knew that a higher rate environment wasn't going to last for very long. And what do we have now? We had a little bit over a year with high rates. And again, we're already talking about these rate cuts because there's too many problems out there. And when it comes to housing, rents, real estate, will we see a lot more stories like this? This is out of San Francisco, one of the epicenters of the housing bubble here. San Francisco home price drops $10 million as market collapses. I wouldn't call this a collapse here. A home in the Russian Hill neighborhood sold for $9.9 million on November 9th after being listed in October 2022. So this sat on the market for over a year, originally listed at almost $20 million. The house sat on the market for a year before almost half of the original list price, in a city that's becoming emblematic of the nationwide housing slump. Well, we haven't seen that type of carnage here nationwide yet, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen. Will they be able to keep this thing propped up with rate cuts? Remember, they can't go back lower than we were. We were already at rock bottom. Look back at previous decades, the rate cuts had always went lower than the previous floor. Now the floor is zero, so will they go negative? I know the negative interest rates thing hasn't been in the news very much lately, but it's something that we did see, across the globe and a few other countries. Negative interest rates. Will they do that here? Who knows? Who knows what these people have planned, what they think is going to work, or what they're up to. Again, you have to be a mind reader to know exactly how to prepare. So I've always said prepare for both scenarios. Have some inflation defense mechanisms in place, have some investments out there, because if they do QE to infinity and beyond, look out, because you could see some exploding stock prices, crypto, who knows? I mean, there's going to be some opportunities here in either direction. Or if something breaks and we see this flood of money stop or get shut off because of regulators, because something, snaps finally, because of, something else bigger, maybe war, maybe an outage. We see these attacks happening on our grid, things like that, right? Keep those things in mind, because that would be massively deflationary. The problem with that is it could turn into Mad Max in a hurry, because if you see the outage scenario, the shelves at the stores will be cleaned out in less than 48 hours. That's what many people, have said, that actually look at the supply chains, the delivery time frames, a couple days and the shelves are empty. Even now, even the way people buy things now, but put in a panic scenario where people are running into the stores, grabbing everything off the shelves and running out because the power's out or something crazy like that. Look out! It could be a few hours and the shelves will be cleaned out. I mean, just look at all the things that have happened with these retail stores here in the U.S. These mobs, and again, as more people get pushed into the poverty line, you're going to see more things like this, more scams, more things getting smashed and grabbed. And who ends up paying for it? Well, the honest people end up paying for it, right? Unless you want to join the smash and grab mobs and get stuff for free. If you're honest and you actually want to pay for things, imagine that. You want to actually pay for something. If you're the honest one, you're going to end up paying for it in the end. And if you buy a gift card, you might get scammed. They might just drain it. All right, crazy times, folks. Hope everyone is well. Want to wish everybody a happy holiday. This news is not meant to be negative. It's just meant to keep you aware of what's happening. I wish I had better news to report. There are good things out there to report on. I could talk about, the cartoons, and I can talk about cool video games. Would it be a lot more fun? Probably. But, this is the type of news and information that I really find myself gravitating towards every day. That's why I continue, to put out this information, and I want to prepare people. And I think the more prepared you are, the more the more knowledge you have about what's happening, the better off you'll be, right? To make better financial decisions, to protect yourself, your family, your friends, your loved ones, right? So that's what it's about. It's about a place of love. This is not about fear. This is not about, doom and gloom or anything like that. Ultimately, having this information, knowing what's going on, is a positive thing, and that's what we want to see. I want to see everyone thrive, survive, not just survive, but thrive. and it's going to get more difficult, but the well prepared, I think, will be on top of the game here, folks. All right, so we're going to wrap this one up here. Thanks everybody for being here. Please like to hear from me down in the comments on this one. What do you think about all this? The gift card situation, again, the rate cuts, everything that's coming at us here in 2024. It's going to get wild. I think 2024 could be the wildest year we've ever seen. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how these people, steer this economy. But either way, hope to see you down in the comments. We'll talk to you very soon now. Bye.